candid conversations, unfiltered opinions, and humor with Abeg Vex Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another great episode. I have the pleasure of having Nick on today. Hi, Nick. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. You okay?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. So Nick and I are going to have a conversation that I know a lot of people are going to benefit from. So we're going to start from basically introducing Nick to everybody, have him introduce himself, what he does, and how he got started. And then we'll delve into the conversation. Nick, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, no problem. So I'm a primary school teacher. I think out in America, you'd call that elementary school?
Elementary school, yes.
Elementary school, yeah. So slightly different years, 3 to 11 years old. So that's like two schools for you, I think, isn't it? Is it middle school you have roughly that age?
We have lower school, middle school, and high school. So
Okay.
middle school is kind of from age about 11 to 13, I believe. I'm still getting used to the American school system. And then the high school is, secondary school. Yeah, so I'm used to the primary secondary school system. I'm learning because I have children here, so.
Yeah, okay. So that middle school was only for a short period of time. Anyway, I was a primary school teacher for a decade now in the same position. I had a tenure in a school here for 8 years, just during COVID, I think. I just decided that I didn't want to be in the profession anymore. I completely disagreed with the education system. Thought that this new change called the Curriculum for Wales was coming in, and I thought that was going to change everything, but it didn't. A lot of people were just renaming what they were doing and doing the same thing, which is not what it should have been. I still think the education system is 20, 30 years, possibly even more out of date, still a Victorian style. Decided that I wanted to create a company that would go into schools and deliver cross-curricular projects that would have specialists in different areas. So you might have a specialist in performing arts, you might have a scientist, but I discovered straight away that there was a massive need to improve children's confidence. I could see that children were suffering with anxiety and their confidence was extremely low. And that's through a variety of different factors that we might discuss now. So the company evolved, I might say, into confident, healthy individuals. So we kind of changed what we did, and we had cross-curricular projects still in schools, but every single project would surround either making the child confident or making the child healthy. So I did that for a little bit, and all of a sudden then the company just completely branched out. So we've done outdoor holiday clubs with children, where they climb in trees, building dens, doing all the fun things that children should be doing. We have children's books. So I have a contract with an online digital publisher to sign 5 books in a mindfulness series. And we still have the schools going as well. And now we have an online course for teenagers that is kind of like mental health first aid, for them to be able to understand their thoughts and feelings and emotions using cognitive brain therapy strategies and things like that.
Right. Wonderful. So you touched on something that, I think a lot of people miss or do not know how to label or recognize it. You talked on anxiety in children, right? So what are the things that you saw in children that denotes anxiety? Because again, it may not present the, textbook way where everybody's okay. So a person that is anxious, is fidgety, is this, is scared, dilate the pupils and all of that stuff. What were the presentation you saw in children when it came to anxiety related to learning or being in a school structure?
So we very much believe in performing as much as possible. The more you perform, the more that you'll become, not immune to it, but that it'll become a lot easier. So what we were seeing is when we were asking children to perform, and we'd never ask a child to perform on their own, it would always be in group situations, and it would be with other groups alongside you performing at the same time. So what I tend to do is split the class in half. So half perform, half watch, and then we swap over and they give each other a positive evaluation. I was noticing that the children would just freeze. They'd go into flight or fright response, and a lot of the time they'd want to get out of that situation as quickly as possible. Again, maybe because they haven't had the opportunity to perform as much as they should have. So you'd see them start to get anxious, they'd start to misbehave, they would start to come up with excuses of why they didn't want to perform, they'd start arguing with their friends, a variety of different things that they would do just to try and get themselves out of that situation of not performing. But what we saw is after a while, then you have those children who are crying, in floods of tears at the beginning, come up with all kinds of excuses, wanting to perform on their own then, after they'd gone through, 2 or 3 weeks of performing in front of other people, getting that positive feedback.
Okay. So positive reinforcement, you're saying, is very important for children.
Especially from their peers, yeah.
Okay, great. So do you see that when we're talking about behavioral things, kids acting out and, picking on each other, how is the collaboration between children when you take them out of the traditional learning environment styles into more of a collaborative environment? Because bullying is a thing in school, right? It is a very real thing. And again, there's some students that are on the receiving end and others are not so nice kids. Do you see that children work together more and, embrace their differences as opposed to picking on each other?
It's a tricky question, really, because you seem to have educators, especially, who are very much like children should just get on with their work, sit by a desk and get on with it, and I'll stop the friction between people. And then there's other people who believe that working with people will be far more beneficial because you are going to get a job at some point where you are working with a range of different people, whether you like them or don't like them. There will be a time where you're going to need to work with people, slightly less so now because we've got working from home and hybrid learning, etc. But yeah, there is definitely still a need to be able to get along with people, even though you possibly are not friends with them. And one thing that I say quite a lot is that we have two contrasting views of certain people. So you have blue way thinking, which is very much logical, data driven, and you have red way thinking, which is very much creative, go with your gut style thinking. And if you don't understand how that person works, or vice versa, then you're going to find it very difficult when they are making decisions for you or making decisions with you if you don't understand how that person's thought process is.
So basically, are you teaching, is part of your curriculum, just like you broke it down on the red and the blue way of thinking, is part of your curriculum helping children collaborate more in understanding one another? Because the vast majority of the disagreement that we see in the world today among adults is the inability to understand that we may not have the same opinion, but we can still get along, or we can at least have a discussion, right? So it's kind of like that all or nothing mindset. So is your curriculum able to, just like you broke it down for us on this podcast, is it able to, or does it include that aspect of children collaborating despite their differences or despite what they bring to the team?
Yeah, one thing that we discuss is cognitive brain therapy strategies based on the principle of the chimp paradox, which I'll explain about later. But it's teaching children that they have different values and beliefs, same for adults as well. And I think if we become a bit more understanding of other people's values and beliefs, you can kind of understand their thought process. So an example I always use is that if an adult hates the education system, didn't have a really good time when they were in school, they are obviously going to pass on that value and belief to that child. So no matter what the teachers are doing in school with that child is probably going to be undone at home. So the problem is not going to be the child and working hard on the child. You might as well be banging your head against a brick wall because you're not going to get anywhere. The root problem is that parent, for a variety of different factors, whether they didn't like school, there's trauma induced. So sometimes you need to look at the bigger picture really and see the children's values and beliefs and for them to be able to understand them, the parents' values and beliefs, and also the school's values and beliefs that we're trying to push on to these children, which they might not 100% agree with as well. And they're obviously going to be having a different message at home.
So, how did you find the experience of bringing the parent into the classroom? I'm a firm believer that it is a team effort, right? Whatever is done in the classroom, should be mirrored in some sense on the home front, especially when it has to do with that child's education and emotional feelings about school. So, as a teacher who worked in the traditional education system, how challenging was that process to try to bring every parent into their children's learning need? And maybe I would say maybe you had a class of maybe about 12 to 15 pupils. And that is a lot of adults to bring into a classroom. So how was that experience for you?
Well, it was extremely difficult. So here in the UK, we have classes of 30, 25, 30 plus. So you can imagine all those adults and all those complications that come with it. I've had a few falling out with family members, parents previously, who've called me names on Facebook and things like that. I think it just needs a lot of time and possibly a person working on that, like a family liaison officer who can help bridge a positive relationship between the parents and teaching staff. Especially now, I believe, anyway, I can see in the last few years that the respect for teachers is diminishing.
I see that a lot in the Western world, given that I went to school in Nigeria, which has the British education system, really. I think it's a cultural thing when it comes to respect in general, and teachers are getting the brunt of it. It's that's a sad thing, when you really, really want to help and then you don't, it's not like you're expecting the same level of help back. However, there is no, what's the word that I'm looking for? There's no,
You're trying to get the message across, really, aren't you? You're trying to say, look, I want to help your child. I'm not against you. We're on the
yes,
same team here.
yes. And it breeds into even adult learners because I do teach at the adult level. And it's sad when, you see that. And that there was a time like in the beginning, and now I've gotten used to it. That's not to say it's a good thing. It's in my coping, right? And you put your effort in, you want something so bad for somebody, but if they are not reciprocating the same energy of wanting it used to, kind of like leave a dent. But I've come now to hyper focus on the parents who are willing to work. However, I'll
Mm-hmm.
do my best, or I'll do my best for students who's willing to show the work, and whoever is not, I'll still do what I'm supposed to do, whether you want to take it seriously or not. And as you move on in life, maybe you see my effort. So I'm thinking like on a primary school level or grade school level, when the children move on to like higher classes, do you have an experience of either former parent reaching out to you to, even if they were cooperative or non-cooperative, I'd like to know, to at least acknowledge your effort in their child's
Yeah,
learning
it's
journey?
really funny actually. My wife and I, we were working in the same school, and a parent stopped her in a supermarket here and apologized. She said, "Oh, I want to apologize to your husband for X, Y, Z, or whatever it was." And I can't even remember what it was that she was apologizing for. So it must have been something that I'd said that she completely disagreed with. So yeah, it still happens quite regularly, and I still get parents saying nice things, especially because they've seen my journey now with Chi Education, and they wish me the best of luck. They share all my posts and like everything.
That's nice. That's really nice. That's neat. Do you have students who reach out to you as well?
Yeah. Funnily enough, I do. You've got to be careful, obviously, with
Yeah.
safeguarding. But there was a few who went to year seven, high school year, and they would message me. There's a few who follow me on TikTok, and they'll post comments on not my TikTok, on Chi Education's TikTok. So I do have a little mini following.
Oh, that's nice. A following is a following. I mean, good for you. So let's come back to education a little bit. The educational system is old. There's no sugarcoating it. What are the kinds of influence that you're looking to have through your program, through your business on the education system?
So first of all, the holiday clubs are extremely important to us. So they are doing school holidays, and what we are trying to, and there's so many barriers that get people put in our way. We want our holiday clubs to be in these amazing locations that have like national parks associated with
Mm.
them. So you'd have a building of some kind, but you'd be able to explore the national park and then come back to the building. And even if it was raining, we'd be outside as much as possible. We'd have a base. So the idea is to get children out as much as possible because of a variety of different reasons. Technology being the main one. Children are spending far too much time on technology. But we are noticing there's just so many issues that we're having because of the use of public toilets, because of this, because of that. So I can see why nobody's done it here in the UK, had that. So that's the key one, that we want to try and get children outside as much as possible. The second one is, like I said previously, is trying to get children to perform as much as possible in a nice way. So it's not just right up you go on your own and you're going to read off something. You want to make it fun. You want to make it engaging. You want to make it that they're having positive feedback, so they feel good about themselves after they've performed, even if it's like 5 or 10 seconds. Start really small and get them to perform, get them to build their confidence. And more importantly than ever now, and we've just created a charity called Confident, Healthy, Active Me. So instead of Confident, Healthy Individuals, where we are going to be working with families, schools and children to get the families and children more active, because I don't know what it's like there, but we should be having 2 hours of physical exercise or PE lessons, physical education here in the UK. And I know for a fact some schools are barely doing 1 hour. And if they are, it's, very poor substandard. There's no tennis, there's no cricket, there's no football. It's usually just run around games that's completely unstructured.
So the barriers that you are experiencing right now with expansion and really making this program what you want it to be for the benefit of the children, is it coming in terms of funding, parent involvement, or the organization sponsoring it, or the school involvement?
We've got every time you have a holiday club and you spend more than 5 days annually at a location, you have to register that venue here with the Care Inspectorate of Wales, and it's a 14-week process. So that's minimum 14 weeks. And they need, I think it's like 25 to 28,000 words altogether of different policies you have to put together, which we have anyway, but it's a lot of organizations. It's a long process to go through. So if you wanted to set up 3 holiday clubs, you're looking at, that's a year gone straight away just to set up those 3. And during that time, you have interviews, you have visits, you have checks, and they're extremely strict. So the process here is, if you want a care home, say a multi-million-pound care home, it's exactly the same process as if you wanted a holiday club for children. So it doesn't matter if you have 10, 15 children and 300 people, it's still exactly the same process. So the system is just completely broken. And on top of that as well, even though we are teachers, we've got a degree and we're teaching assistants. I don't employ, youngsters, mainly teaching assistants. They have to have level 3 in play work. So although they've gone through the degree and they might be specialists in education, they've done the teachers training, there's this one qualification that they must have. And again, that's 10 to 12 weeks long as well.
Wow.
I know.
There's a lot of variables out of your control, so I can see the frustration. So as opposed to doing like a 5-day stretch, is there a leeway where maybe you can start with maybe half a week, maybe 2 days a week, and then kind of like build like a pilot while you are pursuing all the registration and everything for you to have like a full 5 days? Because as opposed to hindering the process, because the 5 days is going to, take all the time is going to pass anyway, right? So that time is going to pass anyway. So as opposed to not having anything at all, have you considered maybe starting out small with just a few days a week, maybe 3 days, and then as you put in your application, get all these policies together while your teachers are also going through the certification process. So by the time everything is all done, we can, go out full throttle 5 days.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do now. But the 5 days is just 5 days a year. So as soon as you've used those 5 days, a year, yeah. So not a week, a year. So once you've used those 5 days in one location, that's it. Then you can't go back there. I know. So we are applying. I think we've got one application in. Again, you're just waiting for so many different variables to come through. Like one of them, I'm waiting for a fit note from the doctors to say that I'm okay, and that's got to be part of the application, even though I had one, I think it was 4 months ago or something, that they run out every 3 months, and that's going to take 2 weeks. So it's just time. Like you were saying, it's just so much time. It will be worth it in the end, but they are setting us back much more than we want, really. And it's a shame because there's a lack of it. There's a huge, especially in the UK, there's a massive lack of outdoor provision for children, especially affordable. We charge £20, £25 a day. So what's that, $20, $18 for a full day's worth of childcare?
Wow. So if it's 5 days a year per location, do you have numerous locations that you can host
Yeah,
this?
that's what
That's
we've had to do for the time being. So while the registration process is happening, that's what we do, and we're moving around, unfortunately.
right. Is there anybody that you would like to appeal to in the, local, state, or whatever government to recognize the need for this program and to expedite things for the children in the UK?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and that's something I haven't pursued yet. Is maybe going a bit further up and saying, look, this not manageable. Number one, because it takes such a long time, and there are so many parents of that need childcare, and people are probably being put off because of this ridiculous application process.
Right. I think you should try that, and that could actually materialize into something very positive because
Yeah, I
it
agree.
sounds great. It sounds great. So when children are outside, I know that, you talked about having teachers that are already certified, they're already doing this work. Is there also a special requirement from you for them to be familiar with the outdoors? So boys are rambunctious, some girls are rambunctious too. Should they be able to teach them something while they're still out there? So what if is a kid who's never started a fire, or has never tied a nautical knot or set up a tent, right? So is there a
Yeah,
special, not special, but is it a requirement that they kind of like also are familiar with the outdoors?
yeah, it's really funny you say that because we've got so many parents who are completely with us and are very much like, yeah, we let the children risk assess themselves, and as long as we put safety measures in place, but it's pretty much you do what you want to as long as you are risk assessing. And then we've got other people who are constantly parents that are constantly asking us questions and like, do you do this? Do you do that? Who are quite not quite familiar with our approach of doing things. So it's quite tricky, really. We try and get the message across that they are children and that we want them to be out as much as they possibly can because it improves your mental health, it improves your physical health, boosts focus and creativity, builds resilience, strengthens social skills. It's endless the amount of positive benefits you get from it, but it is quite difficult to try and get parents on board and let them be risky and let them have risky play.
Yeah, we live in a very bubble wrappy society, so risky play is usually risky, especially with social services getting involved to ask questions.
Yeah.
Um, so I can get the hesitance for some parents. So what are you putting in place for, say, medical needs or medical emergencies from the health standpoint, right? There are the children that are allergic to bee stings, they're allergic to certain plants, certain environmental things. So are you planning to have maybe a nurse or somebody dedicated to, say, the program when each starts? Have you thought about that?
Yeah. We have lots of forms that parents need to fill in just to say if there's any allergies. We have a first aid safeguarding, and we make it very clear to parents from the very beginning that your children are going to participate in risky play, and we allow them to, and it's kind of up to them to risk assess themselves.
Right. So what is the one activity you that kids gravitate towards the most?
It's climbing trees straight away. Anything that they can climb, throwing rocks into the river, that's a
Right.
big one. And especially if they've got wellies on, they actually want to go in the river, which we don't mind. We will go into a shallow place, obviously, without a flow of river. But yeah, anything that involves throwing or climbing.
Beautiful. Fire safety. So do you do camping? Like,
We
camp around a fire, like a campfire or something?
Yeah, we have done s'mores and things like that on a fire. We tend to stay away from too much foresty. We call it forest schools over here because we haven't had the training. We are more just off you go kind of thing, and you use nature yourself rather than us doing things. But we do it occasionally, a couple of times a year.
Okay. Have you had any feedback from any of the children yet? A feedback from any of the children who's participated? Have you had any
Oh yeah,
feedback?
they love it. We get the success rate must be massive of the children that keep coming back to our holiday clubs, especially throughout the year. Parents will say to us, "Oh, they fell asleep in the car on the way home," which is lovely because that's exactly what we want. The first thing in the morning we do is we go for a walk, a nature walk, And I love it. It's amazing because it's hardly anybody there in the park. We pretty much have it to ourselves. And it's just a nice way to get rid of that energy straight off.
Good. Tell us about your program, right? I know that your focus right now is in the UK because you're in the UK. Do you have any goals of it expanding past the UK shores?
Yeah, we do. There's talks of licensing, there's talks of franchising, which might be further down the line. There's also a few people have messaged me and said, "Are you interested in doing your own school?" Which I would absolutely love to do that and have my own complete curriculum, which would be kind of Montessori style, but with a slight twist. And I've seen there's a lady, I can't remember her name is, she's just started a school in America, which is an AI based school. So I think what happens there is that the children can decide what they want to go off and do their tasks. AI kind of sets the task and things that they need to do, and then they'll have a meeting with a kind of teacher who will check to see if they're still on task and still doing what they should be doing. But that kind of philosophy sounds amazing. That's my kind of style of what we love to do and we're all about. So there's a possibility of that. Something that I have branched out internationally, which is our mental health first aid course for teenagers.
Yeah.
So that's just gone, or will be going live on the 1st of January. That's in the pre-launch section now. And that's just going through anxiety, CBT, all the different strategies, like a toolkit. We call it the blueprint. So it's called the 14-day mental health blueprint for teens that they can use to become less anxious, become less reliant on social media and a variety of other things as well.
That's great. So I was going to segue into the teenagers or the teens toolkit, like you call it, the blueprint. The ugly reality is that more and more teenagers are unfortunately making attempts on their lives. So would you say that anxiety from a teacher's perspective is peer related, or, the pressures of what has become the modern day educational system?
Yeah, it's a tough question because loads of people have different answers. So we still have COVID that's happened recently, technology, academic, and peer as well. But from my point of view, from the results that I've seen here, is technology is probably the worst because you're constantly comparing yourself to these people that you see on social media who have these unbelievable lives. So I have somebody that I followed recently, and she was doing amazing things, and she was far ahead of where I wanted to be. So the best thing that I did is just unfollowed her because the amazing things that she was doing was making me feel worse about myself, as in like I should be doing those things that she's doing, but forgetting that she's 10, 5, 8 years ahead of where I want to be. So if you're a teenager and you're constantly seeing these amazing people and they're driving around in cars and they go into this place and that place, it's going to demoralize you.
As a muscle that I think we build over time, as opposed to comparing, or okay, I should be doing that at this point or at this stage in my life, is okay, if this person could get there, I can too. It's kind of like modeling a behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it takes a person getting to a certain point in their life to be able to shift into that mindset of modeling as opposed to comparison. And teenagers are in a very impressionable stage in their lives, right? They're coming into
Mm-hmm.
the thing called adulthood, that they're learning independence, self-reliance. When we're doing the Erickson and, the Piaget's developmental stages and everything, all of those things still apply. And unfortunately, if those needs were not met, they have underlying needs, including whatever is here. And then social media happens, then it's kind of like, okay, so I'm useless. So that is a
That's
lethal
exactly it.
combination. Yeah.
Yeah,
As
we've had schools here where they've banned phones. A local school actually, and they said the results have been amazing.
wow.
Everything has improved. So social interaction, academic results, behaviour, has all had a massive improvement.
So they ban phones for use on school grounds or not at
Yeah,
all? Don't they?
yeah, on
Okay.
school grounds because I don't know why it was ever accepted here, but yeah, that's what's happening in the minute. There's some schools now who are starting to take note, and hopefully it's going to be something that happens across all of the UK.
That's great. That's great. I think the uniform system actually cuts down on a lot of physical comparison, because if kids are in uniform where everybody dresses alike and the accessories and everything are kept to a minimum, then others are not made to feel less than when, a certain kid, whether their parents can afford it or not, coming to school in expensive stuff. And that too breeds just that self-sabotaging type of feeling and stunts progress. So I like that you mentioned social media. So at what age do you think is appropriate, or would you recommend is appropriate for a child to have access to social media?
That's a
Given,
really tough question as well, isn't it? Because now we are seeing primary school children, 9-year-olds plus, they are having phones and they are messaging each other via WhatsApp and Discord servers and all that kind of stuff. I would say high school age, which is fine. But more importantly, it's how that phone and how social media is used. So if the person's only on social media constantly, then that's not a good way of it being used. It depends on who you follow. I think it depends on a variety of different factors. But I would not give it to a child for as long as we possibly can.
yeah, I think communicating and socializing with text messages and WhatsApp is one thing. Going on the big platforms where things are not as regulated and there's a lot of exposure to things is playing dangerous games. Kids
Yeah.
again are very impressionable. They still, regardless of knowing right from wrong, society and peers have a way of having a stronger hold on children than a home bringing does. So I agree. High school is a good time for social media. Middle school and grade school, if you have a phone for emergency and to, call mom and message your friends, outside of school, that's fine. You shouldn't spend a day on it.
Yeah.
So the last bit of thing I would like for us to talk about is we've talked about social media, and you talked about electronics a little bit, and not a little bit, a lot of it. You really talked about the effect of electronics on children now. What is your take on video games? Because again, children are very impressionable, and there's usually this correlation of violent video games with violent behavior. Do you see that is a true correlation, or it all depends on the kid?
Yeah, another tough question again, isn't it? Because a lot of people believe that they are video games, but they're not like the video games that I used to play when I was younger. They're becoming so realistic now. And as you said, teenagers and children are very impressionable. So if they are playing these games which involve shooting, go and gets and things like that, then I think that's only going to have a damaging effect. And I was going to say with social media and gaming as well, they are brilliant. Both can be brilliant, especially social media can make you feel better about yourself. It can make you laugh, all those kind of things. So as long as they're both used in the correct manner, sticking to those age ratings, even though there's peer pressure from especially teens to play games though at 15, 18 years old. And again, it's just being sensible, isn't it? If you're seeing a change in your teen's behavior or child's behavior, that you weren't seeing before, then well, something's not quite right there. And the issue that I have is I've got two young boys and they're allowed a little bit of tablet time now and again, not much. And the things that just pop up on there and it's extremely difficult to control. It doesn't matter if you're on YouTube Kids or things will pop up and you're just like, how on earth has that popped up now? So yeah, same with gaming is that it can be really good because it's a lovely way for escapism, but also you've got to be very careful.
I agree. Vigilance, that's the word. And with busy parents, sometimes it's hard. So controlling it as much as you can. Because again, I've seen things pop up when you do kids. I'm like, wait, what? Why is this here? So, what would your message be to that teacher who is in a traditional teaching scheme, who does not agree with everything that they are doing because they see the effect on their children? Because it's a very scary thing to speak up, it's a scary thing to step out and do what you feel is better for the kids. So, a teacher that is listening, or anybody that is listening today that is in a particular field of work that they don't completely agree with, the setup being that it's old as the education system is, or it's just not effective.
Fit for purpose, yeah. There's two things really. The first one is if you believe in something, then you've got to show that there's evidence to back that up, that methodology or what it is you want to do. Now, I was a firm believer that not everything needed to be evident in books because that takes away from the learning. Because there's hardly any jobs about then where you're going to be writing streams and streams of different things. I understand there needs to be a basic skill level, but I didn't believe in that. So it's just putting your thoughts and opinions across with a little bit of evidence to back it up. And I think if I was back in the teaching profession now, I was very red way thinking, but sometimes I think if I was thinking more blue and logistical and data driven, I would have got through to those people a little bit better. So sometimes it's just thinking of how you can put your thoughts and opinions across the way that that person would want to hear it, rather than you're thinking of, we can just do this and we can do that. For some people, that's the worst idea ever. They need evidence to back it up. And then on the other side of things, if you are really done with the profession, you're complete burnout and you're thinking it's time to go, then I would suggest that you don't leave straight away. You develop a plan, first of all, that you're going to use and really think it through, because it is one of the best things I've ever done in a way, because I would be a completely different person now if I was still in the profession. I was angry, depressed, low mood all the time, frustrated. And it's hard because I've been out of it now 2.5 years to try and remember what I was like. But it is extremely difficult as well, because especially owning your own company, it's like this all the time. It's a roller coaster ride. There's loads of times I've thought about quitting and going back, but I don't think I'd ever go back into the teaching position because I absolutely love doing what I'm doing now. So it's more of, can you continue the way that you are continuing? Would you be happy with the person you are now in 2 or 3 years' time? Or do you think there needs to be a change and have a plan B? The best advice is just, if you want to take time out, you can always go back. Right. Even though most people don't for some reason, but there is always that opportunity to go back as well.
Great. Thank you for that insight. So for parents, the last bit of, a little thing to say to parents. How comfortable should parents be with letting their kids enjoy free play, hugging a tree, touching grass, rolling in dirt? If a parent has, oh my goodness, germs, oh goodness, I don't want them getting hurt. I don't want to scratch, So yeah. What would you say to a parent who's listening?
Well, like I said earlier, it is extremely important to get outside as much as possible. And if you give kind of boundaries to your child, just small boundaries, and allow them to risk assess. Because, like I said, the benefits are it improves mental health, enhances their physical health, obviously builds muscle, builds fitness, builds endurance, boosts their focus and creativity. It builds resilience, more importantly, and it deepens the connection to nature as well. So the benefits, you can look into it, are just absolutely massive. Just trust me, especially if you believe that your child is now neurodiverse, you believe that they could have ADHD, etc. Allowing them to have that freedom where they still envision will make a massive difference.
Absolutely. I agree with that. So thank you, Nick, for being here. We really do appreciate it. And I absolutely love this conversation. So for everybody who's listening, we are going to include everything Nick in the show notes. So Nick's website, business that he has, how to contact him, because we want you to be able to reach him, learn from him, work with him. And please, if you're listening and you're in the UK and you have any pull in having, these summer or this holiday camps approved or move forward, please, please, please reach out. The children need it. The parents need it. The society needs it. We can all benefit from it. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Nick, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to Abeg Vex Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. It really helps us out. We'd love to hear your thoughts and continue the discussion. So join us on social media or drop us a message. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and keep pushing the boundaries of your world.